G'day, sports fans. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Sports by Fry podcast. A hump day Sports by Fry pod coming at you with the great man J-Lo joining me once again. There's not a lot of basketball stuff to cover at the moment, but Jake and I are going to start to preview, or review, I should say, the off-season decisions from a bunch of NBA teams. Today we looked at the Northwest Division, and then I think we'll unpack a division in the subsequent podcasts that'll follow. So there's a bit of basketball stuff there for the hoop heads. I am going to ramp up a bit of NFL coverage as well. Teams are back at training camp. NFL Fantasy season is just around the corner. Didn't dive into that a ton today, but I did cover plenty of AFL Fantasy stuff. The large fries and Coke continue to just slowly move backwards in the rankings, which is not ideal, but with 6 trades to go, I'm finally looking at getting my last rookie off the field and making a couple of other tweaks. And I talk a couple of trade tactics with J-Lo and what he's trying to do with the Quisblorken boys as well. A couple of other footy topics got covered. We talked about the Giants and their potential salary cap woes and which players we want to target potentially as a rival club. Tim Taranto would be a nice addition if you don't mind. And of course, we paid a bit of homage to David Mundy and Josh Kennedy, two icons of West Australian football, announcing their retirement this week. So we're sad to see them go, but yeah, we talk about their fantastic decorated careers and round it out with a Mt Rushmore that, I hate to say it, but I think J-Lo got the better of me in. So Ripper Sportsby pod coming for you. Let's dive into today's episode. I don't know about you, mate, but I am freezing recording this episode of the Sports by Fry podcast. It is Wednesday. It is hump day. So it's time to sit down and talk sports, but I'm going to be pretty chilly doing it. How are you going up in the big smoke?
Mate, it's about the same up here. The things we do for the Sports by Fry listeners, the 50 or so of you out there, appreciate all the 5 YouTube viewers. Actually, That's probably 3 because we're probably 2 of them. But if you ever want to look at this, us just talking on the internet instead of listening to us when you're being productive, throw away an hour and a half of your time. We're on YouTube, in case people don't know.
Yeah, there's plenty of YouTube bits and pieces that are in the works, have been in the works for a while, but podcast does go up there. I mean, I've never been a big watch a podcast, but you're all for it, eh?
I'm a watcher. It is a huge waste of time, but I'll just have it on in the background. It's nice to see a face sometimes, I think anyway.
I can dig that. Hey, if you want to waste your time effectively, make sure you do it with Sports by Fry. That might be my new slogan.
That's exactly what we do. Yeah, waste time.
There is not a lot happening basketball-wise, but we lost a legend. Bill Russell passed away a couple of days ago. I have not a tainted, that's not the right word, but when we originally made like top 10 lists and talked about the best player, I would always rank Bill really high. And I think the 11 championship he won, gave a bit of sway to that. But give me a couple thoughts on Bill Russell. With 88, had a pretty good innings, not just a great on-court success, but like a pretty important dude for American or Black American rights and a civil activist. So, yeah, loss for the American community.
Yeah, that's definitely the big thing that pops to my mind when I think of Bill Russell is what he did off the court. There's that great photo of him, Muhammad Ali, and I think a young Abdul-Jabbar, probably a Lou Alcindor at that point, maybe. And yeah, I think his legacy is probably bigger than basketball and will live on forever. But, what he did on the court was pretty special. And I would have loved to see him kicking it in his prime in today's NBA, just to see how dominant he might have been, particularly on the defensive end. So just unreal bloke.
Yeah, great dude. Shout out to Bill Russell. I listened to a pretty interesting podcast the other day that had, I'm pretty sure his name's Bob Ryan, the old Boston Globe reporter, covered a lot of the Celtics teams, reckons that John Havlicek's one of the greatest players of all time. And he was talking about how, I think it was right after Draymond was saying it's dumb to compare errors. And he was like, no, you can compare errors, but just remember that Bill Russell, for example, he's like would have been the 60s version of LeBron. Like it's all relative and it all changes. But you're right. He averaged 22 rebounds for his career, averaged. So, and like they weren't really even tracking blocks, but a lot of people reckon he would have
like
averaged
maybe the
like
last
8
few years.
to 10. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was a huge difference maker, like you said, on and off the court. So shout out Bill Russell. I reckon because we're in the quiet period of the NBA off season, I reckon for the next 6 weeks, we do a little bit of a run through the divisions because, you know, there are some teams that made some pretty big moves in regards to either chasing a chip or going into full rebuild mode. So I reckon we focus on a specific division each week and we kind of talk about the 5 teams in that division, whether they got worse, whether they got better, and just kind of hash a bit of their off-season moves. So what better spot to start than with, let's be honest, the Sports by Fries team is the Denver Nuggets, because I am a proud Cavaliers fan, but I think it's fair to say I'm more of a Nugs fan than you're a Cavs fan. Agreed?
Yeah, that's probably fair.
Yeah.
I'll pay that. And look, it's because I was listening to a podcast today. The Denver Nuggets are just a fascinating bloody team. Like,
are we listening to a podcast or were you watching a podcast?
I was watching it actually.
Yeah.
The storylines this year for the Nuggets are fascinating. There's so many interesting. Like they had number 5. Will this is a breakout or make or break year for MPJ? That's the 5th most interesting storyline. Like
that's probably true. Like
it is, mate. But there's if that's your 5th, that's just crazy. So yeah, they're an interesting team. Not unlike a few of the other Northwest teams who I think we're about to talk about.
Yeah, so I reckon we dive into the Northwest. I was going to do it in reverse order or ladder order or, order of record. But again, let's start with the Denver Nugs. So they went 48-34 last year. Obviously, the big story that was centered around the Nuggets, actually, there's probably 2. Number 1 was their injuries and the fact that they lost Jamal and they lost Michael Porter Jr. effectively both for the whole season, really. And the second factor was Nikola Jokic backing up his MVP win, because there's a lot of crew that, when he won it the first year, from memory, it was like Embiid and LeBron were also like really top tier contenders. And then a lot of people saying he was like the last man standing, but he backed that up, was better last year, even not necessarily from a per game perspective, but you could just see he was continuing to ascend, and he's probably a top handful player in the league now, without a doubt. So how are you feeling about the Denver Nuggets and where they're sitting rolling into season 2022-23?
I feel very good. And Jokic's per game stats were better last year. Went up in points, went up in rebounds. Like I think he was second in the league in rebounds. Like let's not overlook that. But yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. Injuries are scary. Thank goodness, and this will hurt Derrick Rose. Thank goodness blown ACLs aren't what they used to be. Thank goodness for modern medicine. A lot of accounts are sort of saying that Michael Porter Jr.'s back injury is like a lot of doctors I've heard who deal with that injury have sort of said that his injury is, significant, but it's the sort of thing that he'll probably be able to come back and play and have a good career. He'll just won't have a long career. Like he'll probably retire at 31-ish. So, he's got the wettest jumper in the NBA. So
it's not the first time you've said that on this podcast. I reckon that's, we might need to start a tally.
It's bloody facts. That's what it is. Respect to Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, but MPJ's jumper is wetter than Steph Curry. Maybe that's a big call. But anyway, it's just anyway. So him out on a corner. Bones Highland coming off the bench. He's the man off the bench now. Very exciting. We've added some defense, and I really, the thing I'm so excited to see is Jokic, Murray, Porter, and Gordon, because we got those like, I don't know. It must have only been like 8 games when Gordon was shipped in, and they looked like unstoppable
world beaters.
Basketball. Yeah, world beaters, playing beautiful basketball. And then obviously the knee injury to Murray. So I'm cautiously optimistic. injuries are pretty scary, but I'm excited to see how Bones progresses. Did you see him the other day in the Brunson League?
Nah.
So the Brunson League is one of the like more prestigious pro-ams.
Summer leagues,
like, yeah, like it's not the Drew League, but it's been around for like 80 years or 50 years or something crazy.
Yeah, right.
So it's been there. He scored 62 in the Brunson League, got the win, and everyone in the crowd, and I think he even said himself, could have beaten the record, but the guy who held the record passed away in the last year or something like that. So he,
right,
out of respect, didn't break it. Like, what a baller, first of all, what a legend. And
awesome,
second of all, like, he was just giving cats buckets. He's added size. So I feel pretty good. I love our off-season signings. Even DeAndre Jordan, just a good veteran presence off the very, very end of the bench. So, yeah, I feel pretty good about the Nuggets, and I think we should be at the top of the West. Don't know how you feel.
$21 they're paying to win the chip right now, which was like the 8th, 7th longest odds when I had a look. Because as I was doing prep for this, I was looking at their ins and outs, and I was like, look, you lost Will Barton, they lost Monte Morris, like dudes that have been important pieces for the last, say, 3 or 4 years. But I think that they definitely raised their floor and got better with like the role players and the pieces they put around the roster. Like DeAndre Jordan, laugh as much as you want, but you know, he's a dude. He's made an All-NBA team. He's a warm body, yeah. And Bones Highland improving, I think, is another big one. I think, you know, if you've got him and Campazzo's probably not long for the NBA. Oh, has he?
Yeah, he's gone. Yeah, he's not on the Nuggets.
Oh, fair enough. Turtle Faku. But I still think, yeah, with Bones, Bruce Brown's a like weird player. But I think that like you throw his weird in with Nikola Jokic's weird, it just gives them like lineups and I guess like different, different combinations that you can throw at other teams that not a lot of teams could probably combat. And Jokic is a bit of a unicorn himself. So you add another dude in there who's like, you know, playing center for Brooklyn for a period of time as like a screen and roll type of dude. I think the health of Jamal and Porter Jr. will really obviously dictate how far these dudes go. That goes without saying. But yeah, I think regardless of how healthy they are, and by all reports, like you said, seems like they're all going to have the green light, which is wicked for Nugs fans. But I think the pieces that they've got around the edges got better. So it makes me excited to see, you know, how far this team can go. Because like you said, you're right. I think post All-Star break when they had Porter, Jamal, Jokic, MPJ, and Aaron Gordon. And who's the fifth bloke in that?
Will Barton.
And Will Barton. So you put KCP in that. It's better defensively, and you're not exactly lacking offense with Jamal, Porter Jr. and Jokic. It'd be very interesting to see what that 5-man group can achieve.
They just essentially went into the offseason with a plan. It's build around Jokic. What do we lack? It's defense. So they added KCP as a great wing defender. And actually it's wing defense that we really lacked. And Bruce Brown's like a ridiculously good defender, great cutter.
True.
So it's all pieces that fit around Jokic. I think Zeke Nagy will probably actually start at the 5 off the bench. No, he won't start. He'll be the 5 off the bench. I think DeAndre Jordan will literally not play much. But there's a shooter. There's another weird skill set. Like he's a 45% three-point shooter, plays good rotation defense. I'm really excited to see what the Nuggets do. Obviously, it's all about the injuries and how those two stack up, but I think we're in a good position. Like we've probably said for a few podcasts in a row and about the AFL as well, it's quite level right now. It's almost anyone's game. There's no super team, no matter what you say about the Warriors or the Lakers. It could be anyone's game. So I'm excited to see if Jokic can get 3 straight MVPs, to be honest.
That'd be pretty elite. Yeah, you're right. Since the end of like the Cavs Golden State rivalry, there's been no team that's gone in either conference that's repeated as a finals, making a finals appearance. You know, you had the 2019 Raptors Warriors. Nah, because they played obviously Phoenix the year before last. And then you got Golden State again and Boston. So there's a lot of teams around the mark, right? And you could probably have made the case for, well, Dallas were in the conference finals, like they might put a surge up, and especially if Luka takes another step forward. So I think you're right. It is kind of open, and it's interesting to see who will contend. I think another big thing with the Nugs is that group, like, Jamal, Jokic, you could say Will Barton before he got traded. They kept a lot of those dudes together. And I think regardless of if we're talking AFL or NBA, there's something to say for the continuity and like building together with a big group of dudes. So I'm intrigued to see how far the Nuggets can go. It'll be interesting also to see if the OKC Thunder keep their young core together. They obviously drafted Josh Giddey last year, and this year had the number 2 pick and took who I think's maybe not the best player. That might not be the right word, but I think for what he can contribute on the court, Chet Holmgren he'll be a star. He won't average 30 points a game, but he might, lead the league in rebounds and blocks in the same season. He's that type of rare talent. So adding a dude like him as a franchise cornerstone, for lack of a better word, they've got still, picks up the wazoo, plenty of young talent to build around. They re-signed Lou Dort. They didn't really lose anything. A couple of, scrappy free agents and other dudes who are on like 1-year deals. So what do you reckon OKC? I don't know if this is the year that they kind of start to ascend. I still think they've got some lumps to go through, but it feels like they've got most of the pieces. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as well, near All-Star before he got shut down. So where are you sitting with the Thunder?
Yeah, look, they're going to be one of the, if not the League Pass team of the year. I think.
Okay. Don't hate that.
Just what Lou can do, not Lou, Chet can do is going to be super intriguing. Giddey is like a bit of a Jokic-esque kind of guy, and he's got this weird skill set, and he's herky-jerky, and he's something that the NBA certainly hasn't seen, or probably not since maybe the 70s, He's almost got that 70s kind of play style, like stop, go, maybe even 60s. Shai Gilgeous is awesome. I think they were probably better than their record sort of showed last year, but I was sure that they were going for the number 1 pick. So they shut down Shai. He wasn't injured. He was fine.
Yeah.
I like Lou Dort. I think they've still got Kenny Hustle, Kenrich Williams, who I really like. So they're going to be a fun little team. They still are missing a bit of like quality depth, I think. Like Derek Favors isn't getting it done. That you need those sort of hardened veterans at those backup or sort of 5th and 4th on 5th spots.
Yep.
So I think they've got a long way to go there. But I do think this will be the year that they start to ascend. I think they'll probably stop tanking. I feel like if I was, who's there? Presti? Is he still there?
Yep. Sam Presti.
If I was Sam Presti, I'd be pretty happy to start getting the train rolling. You don't want Shai Gilgeous to lose for too long, or you miss out on the ceiling that you could have, or he might leave. So I reckon they've probably had a big, long chat with him and said, look, give us 2 years. We know you're a star. We're going to get 2 more stars, which they've done. Good hit on Giddey, and now they're off. So fun team to watch. They'll start to ascend, but they're still going to be a long way off the mark because of those backup spots, the depth.
You're right. They don't have a lot of depth. I think Darius Baisley is another dude who comes to mind. Teo Maladon.
Trey Man. I like Trey Man.
Yeah, Trey Man. Like, again, they've got a lot of the pieces, but yeah, I don't know how they all fit into the puzzle. And there's not a lot of veterans on that roster with the exception of Derek Favors and a couple of other randoms. So
yeah,
there will be some big L's. I won't be surprised if I see that. Not for nothing, they managed to poach Chip England, the renowned shooting coach, who everyone thinks is the best shooting coach in the league, from the Spurs. So that bodes well for Giddey, who, doesn't have the prettiest jump shot, but he's an Aussie.
Shai
so
doesn't have a pretty jump shot.
True. He's going to work hard and he's going to get better at his fundamentals. So, yeah, I'm excited to watch this Thunder team. I don't know if I'll subscribe to as many League Pass games because, again, I think they're going to be on the end of some blowouts, but there's lots of talent around to build for the future, which is exciting. I don't think you could say the same for Portland. They've got some pieces, but I feel like they are destined as the next team, next cab off the rank, to just middle it. They're right exactly where you and I say you don't want to be as an NBA team. They were 27 and 55 last year, but they didn't have Dame for a big chunk of the year. Obviously, they traded CJ McCollum as well. Anthony Simons had a bit of a coming out party, but they only really added Gary Payton II and Jeremy Grant in the offseason. Didn't really lose anything of note, so that's a plus. But I don't know if those two ins with the re-signing of Anthony Simons and Yusuf Nurkic, don't know if that team is good enough to, bounce out of the play-in, or really you could even still miss the play-in. Like we just said, the Thunder are going to get a bit better. You think of a lot of the teams below them, Utah and San Antonio seem like they're going to embrace the tank, but the Timberwolves will be a bit better. The Clippers were in the play-in last year. They're going to be better. So I don't know if I'm in or out on the Blazers. Their rookie that they drafted, Shadon Sharp, looks like an intriguing watch as well. But are you high or low, or just middling on the Portland prospects next season?
Look, I'm looking through their roster right now. I don't hate it. I'm just thinking, you've got Amp Simons, Lillard's good. I do like the signing of Jeremy Grant. I think Gary Payton's elite at what he does, and will only get better. What's he? Oh shit, he's 29. Okay. Yeah. I wonder what's going to happen with Joe Ingles' knee.
He's
a
signed
bit
with
intriguing.
the Bucks since their last team.
Okay. Well, never mind then.
Josh Hart's
but anyway,
another one on their team that's interesting as well.
Yeah, is Chris Dunn still there?
I'll be honest.
I'm looking at the roster. I'm like, where did he even come from? I really like Chris Dunn though. Look, there's not quite enough there for me to get really excited. I'm a Yusuf Nurkic hater. Like, I understand he's okay, but he's one of the leakiest. Him and Cat are two of the worst defensive big men in the league. So that's a huge problem straight out the gate. Yep, you've talked me out of it. I was high a second ago, but now, I'm off them. Bugger them.
For what it's worth, I think Chris Dunn is still on the Blazers, but he may also have been on the Blazers and is now a free agent, just sitting in limbo without a deal. Yeah, I mean, there's pieces there to like, and I think the biggest factor that will obviously contribute to what Portland does is not just Dame, because we know he's probably going to pencil in 27 points a night, but what's Anthony Simons going to do next to Dame? Because when he popped off last year and was averaging like 20 plus points, Lillard wasn't playing with him. So can he be that sidekick like CJ McCollum had to adapt and learn how to do? If those two can, combine for, let's say 45 a night, and you get a bit of a punch from Jeremy Grant as well, Josh Hart, Yusuf Nurkic, they could finish 8th or 9th and then battle for a playoff spot if they win a couple playing games. But the more I look at their roster, I can't get excited by a lot of it. There doesn't seem like there's a lot of upside. You know what I mean? You're hinging on a lot of things going right.
I definitely agree. One thing that might make it more exciting is a cheeky dabble on Dame Lillard for scoring title, because that's definitely on the table. That's definitely on the cards, mate.
Might have to.
So maybe just have a think about that. I don't know.
I reckon before the season starts, we'll do a bit of a long shot, or not even a long shot, but like a betting preview. Be like, yep, I'm putting my name to this bloke for scoring title, this, and this, and see if it pays off. Because more often than not, we tend to hit on some of these things. So,
just quietly on the this is a circle back to the Nuggets. Bones Highland double. Bones Highland double for most improved, and if he gets most improved, there's a chance he wins 6-man. So,
okay.
Just think about that. Double it up. Chuck on a multi.
For a second, I've done the AFL thing. I was like, is he still eligible for the Rising Star Award? Did he not play enough games?
Yeah, right.
All right. There's no easy way to transition into the garbage fire that is the Utah Jazz. Went 49 and 33 last year. Won 50 plus games the year before that. Obviously, they've had Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert as their two pillars to build around, but one of them's gone to a team that we'll talk about next, and one of them might be going any day now. So I don't know where I sit with the Utah Jazz. I think I don't hate the idea of getting all those picks and flicking out Rudy Gobert, but I think with the, if they tank, let's say this year, and they want to get Victor Wembanyama, and there's a couple of other prized assets at the top of the totem pole, the draft order, whatever, I think they could probably still sell off a couple of these blokes. Like I talked about on last week's pod, your Mike Conleys, your Patrick Beverleys, Jordan Clarkson even, someone would happily pay up for him. I feel like they want to, instead of getting more picks now, is try and just find a couple of dudes who haven't had a clean run at it. Chris Dunn isn't a great example because he's been hurt and hasn't really caught fire, but like a Colin Sexton, for example, like if they had him this season, I don't think he would win a shitload of games and force them out of the number one, or, the bottom of the standings. But, he could be a dude that if you get another high scoring wing or a two-way wing, he could be the Robin to the Batman, or he could be, your third best player and a scoring dude. So not necessarily how do you feel about the Jazz? Because I think both of us think they're going to be shit, but what do you reckon they should do from here? Should they just fire sale and get anything possible for blokes, or should they try and keep a couple of pieces around and continue to build somewhat with the roster they got?
Look, I think they've got, is it mostly Minnesota's picks that they got?
Yeah, I think they got one player who was drafted in the most recent draft, but then it's all future Minnesota picks.
So you probably would want some other teams' picks, I would think. So finding a way to manufacture that. Don't know how to do that. Bojan Bogdanovic might be an option to. You could probably pick up a late or middle first rounder, because I don't think those Minnesota picks will do it. Although if they do bad enough, then obviously they're in business. I'm looking and seeing that they obviously got Beasley and Vanderbilt in that trade, which I don't mind. I think they're two. I don't like Malik Beasley as a person, or he's a right player. Seems like a prick, but Vanderbilt I really like. There's a guy who's never really got a clean run of it. He was a All-American, and I think he'd done his knee coming up to the draft. So I think he's actually a really good player. He looked okay next to Cat last year, so I don't mind that. Did they get Alexander Walker as well? Am I seeing?
They signed or traded for him last year, but I think
there's a guy who's never had a clean run at it, I would say. He's a bucket.
True.
So, yeah, I think I would go down a similar route to what you're saying, though. Maybe try and pick up a few other teams' picks who might go bust, but also you need somebody playing for you. You need to and have some sort of contingency for when a Wembanyama comes in or whoever else is in that draft class. You don't want them to come in with a bunch of like young, snooty, out for themselves players. You need some guidance. So Mike Conley, if he's still there, might be a good option. But other than that, you're kind of like, well, there's no one. Rudy Gay, maybe. Is he still there?
Yeah, I think he's on like the last legs of his NBA career, though, to be honest. Alexander Walker was involved in that monumental Portland trade that saw CJ go to Portland, and then Utah got involved and flicked a couple of pieces around. So you're right.
Right.
Him, Vanderbilt, those type of dudes, I reckon, is what they should be throwing darts at. Because you don't need one of them to become Kevin Durant. You just need like a couple of them to, like, I don't know why this is the first bloke that sprung to mind, but one of them could just become like a Derek Fisher. Just be like a key contributor to winning, because they don't have the cornerstone to build around yet. And you could flick a couple of those Minnesota picks on draft night and maybe shuffle a few things around. I think the Donovan Mitchell landing spot will be interesting to watch. Like if he goes to the Knicks, do the Knicks sacrifice a lot of picks? I don't know, does a team like Charlotte throw their hat into the ring? That their picks could be intriguing if that thing blows up in a couple of years. So there are teams that you could price some picks away that would be intriguing. But yeah, I don't think Utah is going to be very intriguing to watch either way this year, which is a shame because they're bringing back the purple Jazz jerseys with the mountains on them. So yeah, not exactly a great time to do that because I don't know which Utah player's jersey you'd want right now.
No one.
The Timberwolves now are the proud owner of Rudy Gobert, as most basketball fans are aware. I've tossed and turned whether I like this move or not of them trading for Gobert. But you're right. You said it earlier that Cat is a bit of a sieve on defense. He's not known for being a stopper. And I think you and I are both just out on Cat in general. But again, he could be the third best player on that team if you put Ant Edwards at the top of the talent pool and he takes another massive step and becomes like an all-NBA guy. Rudy Gobert's your defensive stopper who catches lobs, and Karl Anthony Towns just gets his 20 and spots up behind the three-point line. It could work. They obviously, in that trade, sacrificed a bit of depth. Like you said, they lost Vanderbilt, Beasley, Beverly, but they signed Kyle Anderson. They added a couple of other pieces around the fringes. So do you reckon the Timberwolves did enough to push themselves into the top 6 out west, or are they probably going to be in the playing game again, battling for one of those final seeds?
I think they could have pushed themselves into the top 4. This could go really well. Like they've addressed a huge weakness, big man defense. Cat's not a great rebounder, so they've got that rim protection, and you're going to get a step forward from Ant Edwards. I think D'Angelo Russell's still a good player, still a dangerous player. You've got I don't know who else is on there. Jordan McLaughlin. Actually, I like Jaden McDaniels too. They've got some players who are
he is handy,
pretty solid. So they might be 10th. It might go totally wrong, but what I would suspect is it gives them a lot of flexibility with sort of staggered rotations. So you can start Rudy next to Cat and then take Rudy off for 5 minutes and chuck him on with the second unit. And all of a sudden you've got a elite defensive second unit, which might have been where they went a bit wrong. They had a really good defense last year as well. So adding a 3-time defensive player of the year next to like Naz Reid, Taurean Prince, they have Pascal, Eric Pascal.
Yep.
I think he
Pascal
came over in the
from
trade. Yeah, like they've got some really interesting players. So I am weirdly high on them, even though I'm spewing they're in my division. Don't like Cat. Got a bit of a rivalry with Gobert, but they could give a lot of teams a lot of problems. They might not. It might be a total bust, but it's either going to be, it's a high risk, high reward proposition, but you kind of got to do that in the NBA when they don't have a bona fide superstar yet. Ant Edwards might get there, but they've made a splash. So
I think at first I was turned off by how many picks they gave up, but if you're successful, who gives a fuck? Like the future first rounders that could be in the 20s, of course you want to have, as many dart throws to try and get that talent that can help you succeed and win a chip. But there's nothing wrong with them like trading back in if they find a player they like who slides, or there's plenty of ways around it. So I'm in a similar camp. I think I'm warming to them going not all in, but making this splash for Gobert. No one's signing in Minnesota. So if you've got a quartet of Gobert, Cat, Anthony Edwards, and D'Angelo Russell to build around, there's definitely worse out there. So I think they have done enough to kind of push themselves, maybe not into like championship contention yet, halfway through the season or a third of the way through the season.
Maybe.
Yeah, if it's working, who knows? But I think that they definitely got better with this trade, which as an NBA team, if you can get better while giving up 4 first rounders, not a bad thing.
And you got to remember, we're not on the inside. And so there's potentially Tim Conley coming in. He might have already thought this. He's a great GM, just quietly, Denver Nuggets boy. He figured out, he got Jokic, so he's pretty bloody good, obviously.
Yeah.
But he might have come in and the rest of the organization might be sitting there looking and really believing that Ant Edwards is that guy. And let's be honest, like, there's even like the physical face comparisons to Jordan. Like he's come in the first two years. This is his 3rd year coming up.
Yeah.
I think it is.
That sounds right.
Anyway, he just come off like a 24 point per game scoring campaign. There's no reason he might not jump up to his jump shots come along. He might jump up to 27, 30. And then all of a sudden we're like, well, they've got their guy. They don't need to draft. They've got Cat next to him. They've got D'Lo next to him. They've got an oldish, but still around the mark Gobert. they could contend for the next 3-4 years with Ant Edwards just driving that improvement, and McDaniels, because he's sneaky underrated. So I think they made the right move.
Yeah, if you've got that dude to build around and those other like accompanying stars, then really we're not talking you need to find someone to help you in the draft. We're just talking complementary pieces at that point. And if they're contending, there's going to be plenty of blokes lining up to jump ship and join Minnesota, which is a sentence I never thought I would say. So there you go.
Yeah. Tim Connolly, mate, he's found a MVP at pick 41. So you can find whatever you want wherever in the draft if you look hard enough. Let's be honest.
Yeah, true. Just got to have the right man calling the shots. I reckon next week we'll pivot and go to the Eastern Conference, but that's good. I like a little bit of a synopsis of what's happening in the off season so far. I was going to do a little bit of NFL stuff and start to talk a bit of NFL fantasy because all the franchises are back doing their training camp, and NFL fantasy isn't at the forefront of my sports passion, but it's something I definitely get around each year. So we might do a little tidbit next week, but we're still focusing on AFL fantasy because there's 3 weeks to go. And you've managed to outscore me once again, taking the season ledger to 6 for JLo and 13 for Frosty. But yeah, I'm over it. I don't love my team. Andy Brayshaw as my VC was nice, but I thought I'd hardly put a foot wrong last week. I obviously had to field another rookie when Cogs was out, but I was happy with my trades. Got in Tommy Stewart. Had a lot of blokes play on the Friday and Saturday, so not too many on the Sunday. Finished footy and checked my rank and my score, and I posted 2224, and I'd slid like 1,000 spots. So I was like, I wonder what happened. Go to the match center, and of course, Zachy Merritt's 172 staring me straight down the barrel. So not ideal. I'm glad there's only a couple of weeks to go, but I'm not going to give up. So how are the exactly how are the Quisporkum boys flying, rolling into round 21?
Yeah, we're pretty good. I'm at that point where I'm like, who the fuck do I trade out? And I feel like that's a common conversation I've had with quite a few fantasy punters over this week. And I must admit, I don't fucking know. So I feel that's a bloody good position to be in. Obviously had the 2 top scorers from last week in Rodog and Merritt. So
you captain Merritt?
No, I VC'd Brace. Brace.
Yeah, okay. You take that.
You take it. So yeah, I'm pretty happy. Don't really know what to do. So I guess we're just gonna hopefully we can come up with some good shit on this podcast, mate.
Oh, we will. Very quickly, I think, because my trade plans are not too eventful. I'm still fielding Jai Cully. I was last week. I was hoping he could.
You're fielding Cully.
Was fielding Cully. Yep.
Oh, last week. You're not doing this week.
No, well, I can't because the bloke's given Noah Anderson a little to the chin, so he's out of the lineup.
Attaboy.
What's his 3rd pro game? Yeah, fuck you, Noah Anderson. Who do you think you are? Bang. I'm Jai Cully. So yeah, I need to come up with a different solution, and I was looking at potentially playing Josh Carmichael if he comes into the 22, but I need to get the rookies off my field. So I had a bit of bank left over. And trading out my man Massimo D'Ambrosio pains me to do it, but flicking him down to Jai Menzie, who was Essendon's Medi sub, and I kind of rate mid-season pick.
Okay.
I then can go Jai Cully up to Zach Butters and have exactly 0 in the bank. He's about the best I can get to, but I think the reason I'm going to go for Butters is because the only other league I'm still in, the big Lock Pethick League, with quite a bit of prize money up for grabs, bloke I'm playing this week also has Butters. So I'm like, if I get him, that cancels it out. And then there's only a couple of other uniques that can determine the result, if you get what I'm saying.
Very tactical, Frosty. I don't mind. He's been going all right. He's been going all right.
And he's cheap as fuck, obviously, because he burnt me earlier in the year. But
yeah,
hey,
we're all on that. We're all on that boat, mate.
You're not wrong. On that Zach Butters point, before we get into your trade maneuvers, how many blokes have you got in your fantasy side that started the year in your team that are still there? Because Butters, for me, will be one who I obviously ditched and then brought back in. But how many blokes have you had that you picked in round 1 that are still in your side now?
Let me just quickly count. That's Jaden Short, Jack Crisp,
Good
2.
one. Yep.
Lockie Neal, 3. Merritt, 4. He's been out, but he came back in. Cripps, 5. Didn't have him. I didn't have him either. Baz Smith, 6. Cogs, 7. Dunkley, 8. Taranto, 9. Romarsh, 10.
It's a pretty good list. Pretty good list of characters. I don't have as many, but A. Brayshaw, Crisp, Sicily, a couple of bench blokes, I think, as well, floating around. Lockie Neal, McRae. Didn't start the season with Tim English. Was thinking about it, but did not. And then I've got Dunkley, Cogs, and now obviously back in the side as Butters. So I think I got 8 or so. But yeah, I saw someone pose that question earlier, and I was like, oh, I wonder how many blokes I've still got kicking. It's interesting.
Yeah, no, I've gone all right. A few went in and out though, so I don't know if you can count that, but I'm going to count it. So 10.
Repay the faith. All right,
Yeah.
so let's talk through who you're flicking out, because I'll be honest, if I wasn't doing that Cully move, and I've had a bit of a tinker around if I decide to play Carmichael, I was in the same boat. I was like, there's a couple of dudes that I want to get rid of, like your Das Cameron, Sean Darcy, maybe even someone like McRae, who's been struggling in the last few weeks, Crispy as well, but yeah, I don't know. I don't love any of the moves. So where are the Quisplorkin boys at? Talk me through it.
So the blokes who I think are who I'm worried about Himmelberg after last week. Started up forward, and that hurt his score. I think he went back and then got tagged or something. So
yeah,
he could come good. Nick Dacos is still there. I don't know what to do with him. And the other one is Tim Kelly. I kind of got stuck with him off the back of the 4-touch game, but he bounced back and had a 97. He's got the Crows coming up, who just give up a ton of tackles and a ton of points. You saw the boys last week do it, and Cripps and Walshy. So part of me thinks I'll keep Tim around. So what I've done at the moment, and this is very early stages, and it's pending an inclusion, but I think I'm going to trade out Himmelberg and Dacos. I'm going to save a whole lot of money and go down to Aaron Hall if he plays. Because let's be honest, he'll probably play and get a 120, and everyone will be like, why don't I have him? I did it 2 games ago.
Couple weeks ago, yeah.
If I'd known he was playing, he would have come straight in. And the other bloke I think I'm going to jump back on. And I'm pretty sure he's on your never again list, but I think it's the Dane Zorko. I think he's back enough. He's had 2 pretty decent scores. He's worth absolutely nothing. And that's going to leave me with 309K in the bank for next week.
That's pretty nice. Yeah, Zorko in his 2 games back has had 86 and 97. So
yeah, he's one of those guys who's historically an elite fantasy performer. Tends to finish years strong too. He finished last year really strong and ended up with a really high price.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about going that way. I just don't love. I could go to Jack Sinclair, but I just don't love his run. So that's probably the only other direction I would consider going is Hawley. Still bring Hawley in. I think I just love watching Aaron Hall play. Like when he's playing and he's healthy, God, he's a joy to watch. He just gets so many touches, so many kick-ins, especially in North Melbourne. And, I could go Sinclair. So they're probably the 2 routes I'm going. Don't think I could get up to anyone who I'm happy enough from Kelly. But with 300K in the bank next week, I could go to pretty much anyone. So I think that's the way I'm going to go. I might get absolutely burned. Himmelberg might have 120 and Dacos might do the same. I think he had like 115 against Melbourne last year.
Jesus.
But last game. But I think that's the route that's the route I'm currently on. So it's highly subject to change, but pretty happy with my midfield. Like I'm just looking at last week's scores. Toot gave me 122. Jack Steele, I'm not touching, gave me 107. Lockie Neal, 100, but I wouldn't move him. Braish, 137. Merritt, 172. Cripps, 139. Mitchell, 115. And then obviously Kelly's the odd man out, but he gave me a 97. So I think that's the route I'm going to go. Probably depends if Cogs plays as well.
True.
Yeah, that's probably the other factor, or if there's some other random exclusion.
Yeah, I like it. I think all signs point to Cogs playing. All signs point to Hawley playing. And I think you're right in giving Himmelberg the flick. And I'd probably, of the three that you're talking about, especially because of Kelly's price, like, do you have anything in the bank before trades this week?
I think I had about 75-ish, 75, 80.
Because Kelly's what, 6 something?
Yeah,
after his bloody
low sixes.
getting out of football a couple of weeks ago.
He's 615. So I could probably get to someone who's like just under those like elite guys who you'd want to bring in the Olivers, McCluggage, Mills, Laird. They're the sort of the four that I don't have that I would potentially want. I could probably get to Walshy. I could probably get McRae, but I just don't love it. So I think
what I do love is the
make splash.
The idea of having 300k so that next week you can go, righto, TK, you had your fun in against Adelaide. Now I give you the chop and you can turn him into Cal Mills for his last two or Claytos or something like that. Don't hate that idea.
Yeah.
And fantasy's all about having a bit of fun. Got to roll the dice. I was quick to throw Dane Zorko under the bus and say I'm never picking him again and I fucking hate the bloke. But I've softened on my stance. He's actually he's okay by my eyes. He's okay. He's got another chance. So because I genuinely looked at getting him too, doing a bit of dual position shuffling. But I think Hawley plus Zorko plus 300k for Dacos and Himmelberg's pretty smooth maneuver. I think if team selection is not nice, then yeah, I would, if I was in your shoes, probably get rid of the Berg first. Now that he's kind of gone forward and he's been tagged a bit, it's a bit dicey. And you could make the same argument for Dacos being a rookie, but, Collingwood are flying fucking high. So I think you have a bit more faith in him. But again, he is a rookie, so I don't know.
And also, I really love Zorko and Hall's ownership. Hall's under 10, Zorko's under 5. So if I want to make that little move down the rankings, currently ranked 9, 8. So I want to stay in the top 10. I want to push towards 8,000 by the end of the year. I know it's not a very lofty.
You're probably going to catch me, mate, at this rate.
Yeah, well, wouldn't that be something? Would that not be something, mate?
Well, I'm 5'7" at the moment, so I've still got a little bit of maneuvering. But since the buys, really, it's just been like back a couple of 100 spots every fucking week. But hey, who doesn't love a bit of fantasy footy?
That's the way fantasy footy crumbles, mate.
Yeah, I think Cog comes back in this week, and I'm able to get Butters, and that cancels it out in that matchup. That should be solid. Speaking of Cogs, there's a lot going on at the GWS Giants at the moment. Spike McVeigh doesn't look like he's going to get the head coaching gig. He might. Clarko's sniffing around, but there's a lot being made about their salary cap issues and blokes who are up for grabs via trade. So I'm not going to spend a ton bouncing around the league talking lots of other footy stories, but I want to talk this one quickly because Cogs appears safe. Same with Josh Kelly. Lockie Whitfield, depending on who you believe, is safe, but I don't think they're going to be trading him. Tom Green as well is probably going to stay. But most of the rest of their roster seems like it's up for grabs, including, which kind of surprises me, Timmy Taranto, who's shown that he can be pretty versatile and can play as an inside ball, but also go forward and kick 3 or 4 goals. Jacob Hopper, another inside mid. Tanner Bruin, who they only drafted a couple of years ago. Bobby Hill said he wanted out. Yeah, so do I. Bobby Hill said he wanted out last off-season, and from what I read the other day, Collingwood affirming to get him. So you're a rival club. Obviously, different blokes are going to come with different asking prices, but of those Giants who could be potentially poached, who would you call? I don't even know who their list manager is. Who would you call GWS's list manager and propose a trade?
So who are the untouchables? Cogs, Whitfield, Kelly, and
Tom
Green,
apparently. Yeah.
Toby?
And Toby. I'll throw him in there as well. Like co-captain. Doubt he's going anywhere. And there's probably a couple of others as well, like Sam Taylor, but it seems like
Lockie Ash maybe, or
some of those characters, but it seems like Taranto, Hopper, Bruin, Bobby Hill, and maybe a couple of other fringe dudes. Nick Haynes, but he's apparently on a pretty hefty salary, so not many people want to touch that. But yeah, who appeals to you as an outsider looking in?
well, Taranto is the obvious one.
Mm.
But you know what? Any of the blokes you've mentioned, I really like Tanner Bruin. I really like, I think Hopper, going back to the basketball yarn we had, one of those blokes who's probably never got a clean run at it. So look, I'd be hesitant if I'm North Melbourne, but if North Melbourne could get a Hopper and just go, here you go, mate, like you're one of the starting three mids, kind of the way George Hewitt, has done it this year at the Blues.
Carlton.
I reckon he could be really intriguing. So those three are the ones that really stick out. Harry Himmelberg's pretty young. I doubt they'd part with him. And then if they part with him, they've got fucking no one to kick goals, even though he's been a backman. He would be intriguing.
You get good old, you could get Jake Riccardi, the party starter, coming out of the cage. He was a bloke that last off season before he re-signed, I was like, yep, some teams got to try and snap that bloke up. He's going to be a jet, but didn't happen.
Yeah, look, they're all pretty intriguing players. They're all best 22 AFL players. So I reckon give those blokes a go. But Hopper would be really interesting for, say, a Richmond, who's probably going to lose a few key midfielders who he's almost feels like Trent Cotchin, like a light. You know, he's an inside guy, does the hard stuff, isn't flashy, isn't quick, but he just gets the footy and sort of does the other stuff. So maybe that would actually be a weirdly good fit, him to Richmond or something like that. Someone with a good system that Hopper can just sort of plug a hole.
Hole.
I don't know.
Don't
like
do
that
plug
analogy, but anyway.
That is how it goes, though. I think, obviously, like I said, each of those dudes are going to have a different asking price. But if you think that Taranto's, like, the price to get him's up here, let's say Hopper's in the middle and Bruin's a bit cheaper. If you're Richmond out of those three, would you sacrifice a lot and go for Taranto, go for Hopper, or go for a cheaper, potentially younger option that you can develop like Tanner Bruin?
Well, look, you go for Taranto. It doesn't feel like Richmond. I don't think they need the draft. They don't feel like they're in that position. I feel like if they could add Tim Taranto, that would almost reopen their window in my mind a little bit. If you're one of the people who thinks it's closed, I don't think it's closed. I think Shea Bolton, Liam Baker just re-signed. I think they have enough in them to sort of propel them forward. They've still got Lynch up forward. They've still got a solid back line. I reckon if you could get Taranto, that might reopen the window. He's a bona fide star. But also I think Hopper could fill a role nicely. I'd be less inclined to go Bruin, but if you could get him for bugger all, then sure.
Tom Lynch yet to turn 30, and you got Jaden Short in that team as well. Yeah, you got me thinking there about Richmond. But all right, let's pose the same question with Essendon, because they probably need another couple of engine room contributors. Do you pay overs for Tim Taranto? Do you go the middle route with Hopper or the young development route with Tanner Bruin?
Hopper seems like the right answer there, because they've got McGrath, they've got superstar Merritt, they've got Das Parish, who's young, who's an absolute, like, I will start my fantasy side next year with him in it. I reckon he's cheap. That sort of, he will be cheap, and he's just an accumulator, mate. Like he'll go out and get you 40 touches, no worries. Next to Zach Merritt's 40. You don't need a lot of prime ball winners. They just need a bit of toughness and inside. Dylan Shields, a bit of a weird, he's sort of inside, sort of outside, but if they could add a Hopper, you don't want to be developing Tanner. I wouldn't have thought. They've got enough youth, enough development to come within that Essendon side. So I reckon Hopper would be a really good fit for Essendon.
Yeah, okay. Last one, same question. Collingwood, do you reckon that they need the Hopper type, Taranto type to kind of tip them over the edge, or are they still got a young enough list profile that getting to Bruin on the cheap is the way to go?
Man, it's probably a pretty good time to be a Collingwood Magpie player or fan, because I reckon they could go any three of those options. Obviously, have slightly different implications. But like I said, I really rate Tanner Bruin. I really think if you got him and Dacos in your midfield for the next decade, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, tasty.
Obviously, if you add Taranto, that catapults them up to the top of the ladder. They're already in top 4 contention. I think that only adds like another string to their bow. But if they struck out on both and could get a hopper or someone we're missing from that Giant side, I reckon that would also work nicely. They've kind of done it in the guts by, what's the word? The team. They've done it sort of Richmond style rather
By
than
committee
having
type of style.
committee. Thank you. That's the one I was looking for. Taylor Adams isn't what he used to be. Crisp he's not like a really damaging elite midfielder, if you ask me. I don't know who else they're bloody running through there. So
Lipinski.
Dacos on a wing. Who's that?
Pat Lipinski, maybe getting a couple of cups of coffee.
Yeah, but Hopper's kind of I guess is he the eldest out of those 3?
Oh, good question. I did just have the list up. I'll get it back. I know that he is 25 and has 111 games of experience under his belt, which I thought he played
He's
less.
in the pocket.
Yeah.
He's in the pocket. We love those 25-year-olds.
Yeah, you're not wrong. He and Timmy Taranto are virtually the same. They're both born in 90. Oh, no, Hopper's a year older.
Okay. Well, but he's still not that old. He's fucking 25 years old.
Yeah.
So he would fit age profile wise, almost as well as Braun, I think they're in a good enough position to go either way, especially if you only give up picks, really. Like they're not getting a top 4 pick probably any time. Dacos is probably the last one they'll get for the next decade, the way they're tracking. So I would say any of them. Yeah. To be honest.
I tend to agree. I think the Pies are in a really good spot. And let's be honest, if any of these teams can get Tim Taranto, they get Tim Taranto. Like he's clearly the best player and the most versatile and a star. But you're right, Hopper could just develop into that bloke who never really got his opportunity because of a star-studded midfield and goes on to have a bit of a revival, like a Taylor Adams kind of did, I guess. Dill Shield, another ex-Giant who we've mentioned in this combo. So there's a lot of ex-Giants who are, Treloar, they just keep on coming. One bloke. Oh, actually, I won't dive into that one. I want to quickly, before we do our Mount Rushmore, address a sad topic. It's the 2 retiring greats from Western Australia. So, You ready for a useless sports by Fry stat? Because this is a goodie.
Would I have read it on your Instagram already?
No, I don't think so. I was going to put it in there. Go. I'll be honest. But
buckle up.
Dave Mundy announces his retirement on Monday. He's got the most disposals in games played outside of Victoria in AFL history. I think he'll be overtaken by Travis Boak maybe by the end of the season. But then Tuesday, Josh Kennedy announces his retirement. Most goals kicked in games played outside of Victoria. Josh Kennedy, 546. So
wow,
the most goals and the most disposals for games played outside of Victoria, retiring back to back. Sad day for WA footy fans. I mean, I am a proud Freo supporter, but I do love JK, the only Eagle to have 3 bags of 10 plus, dual Coleman medal, should have had 3, an elite forward, arguably when he was at the peak of his powers, the best forward going around. So, and Mundy, Mr. Consistency. I think he polled the highest amount of Brownlow votes last year or the year before. So his seasons haven't really improved or got worse, but he's just been 25 disposals for 19 years. So, sad day, but good to celebrate 2 elite footballing careers from a West Australian standpoint.
Yeah, sad to see them go, but glad to have had them.
Yeah.
Is the way I'm looking at it. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Don't be sad it's over. Be glad it happened.
Yeah, exactly.
These blokes that we talk about in the Mt Rushmore count, though, they might be a little butthurt. They might be a little bit disappointed.
A little spicy.
A little salty that they missed out. Because tonight, you'll have the first pick after another win for Frosty. But we are drafting the best
What was
AFL
last
players.
week again? I can't even remember.
If I had $1 for every time you asked that, I would have about $7 in a row on Wednesday. It was the NBA highlights one last week.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was bloody tight. It was tight. I think Twitter got me over the line. Instagram was kind of split. But yeah, this Mount Rushmore will consist of AFL players who never won a Charlie, never claimed the Brownlow medal. I did an article way back in 2019. I think it was before Pendles or Joel Selward was going to move into the top spot for the most votes by a bloke who's never won one. And then that kind of triggered the article. Might even update it and throw the link in the description.
Fun fact, as I was researching this, I was like clicking through articles, and then the second one I went on to, I was like, I didn't look at any of the website. I just scrolled straight to the list and read like the first 2 sentences, and I was like, I reckon this is Fry's bit of writing. Like I could recognize your writing.
There you go.
The way you write and the way so, and I was like, hey, it's number 2. You're number 2 on the list of the best players to never win a Brownlow in Google search.
I'll take it. Because that's not an uncommon Google search. Let's hope.
No. Yeah.
Kinda. All right. It was interesting to build this list because obviously, like I said, when I did that article, a lot of the players I talked about were guys who had the most Brownlow votes but didn't win one. But there's some other guys, like you think about the draft we did a couple of weeks ago of the best players to play under 250 games. You could maybe make the case for some of them to be like deserving Brownlow winners. So kick us off. I think personally I've got a clear one in mind, but there's a couple of moving parts that'll dictate my draft. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Oh, damn. I actually wish I didn't have the number 1 pick. Because you kind of have to think, oh, well, who could I, like, will he pick this bloke and can I sneak him under the radar? Oh, but there's some bloody good players. Let's be honest. This is a list of elite blokes. I think I'm going to go with a bloke who a lot of people say is the greatest to ever do it. Yeah. And I know that's not given too much away early in this list because there's probably 3 blokes on this list who could make that argument about. But this bloke was just like unstoppable in his prime. Played the hardest position on the field, kicked a lot of goals, got a lot of the footy, and was just, he was bigger than the game when he did it. So I'm going to pick with my number 1 pick, Wayne the King Carey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think just being able to have him on my list and picking one of the guys next who you don't pick, I feel pretty excited about. So I think grabbing Wayne Carey number 1, I'm looking forward to see what people think. He'll look good on a graphic in his blue and white too.
I'll be honest, like until a couple of months ago, I never really had a scope of how good Duck was as a footballer. Like I knew he was one of the greats, but I never watched much of him. I heard it all, but then I did a bit of a number crunch and like looked through his resume and I was like, oh, this bloke like might be one of the greatest to ever do it. So
yeah, especially because he had that weird period where he wasn't playing, where he was still good. Yeah.
Bizarre, eh? There was 2 other blokes who I was kind of thinking you were talking about when you were doing that, and neither of them were the ones you took. So I'm going to take one of them now who fits a very similar mold to the character you just took, but subtract maybe a decade. Another bloke who is probably the greatest to do what he did. Sits in the top handful of goal kickers in AFL history. His son won one. So I'm going to take Gary Ablett Sr. with the 2nd pick. And there's, again, you could go a lot of different directions, but when we're talking like the best players to play footy, you can't not mention the name Ablett. In fact, Gary Ablett Jr. might be the best. He's probably our generation's best. But yeah, Senior was no scrub either, obviously. So he's going to be my first pick.
Wow. This gets hard now. You know what? I'm gonna go with the guy who was my number 3 on my list. So, I actually never got to see this bloke play. So that probably tells you who I'm about to pick. But he's widely regarded as the greatest to ever do it. Tough as nails. So tough he broke a goalpost. Don't know how many games he played, but he's one of the characters who's influenced the game post-career as well. Commentary, coaching.
True. It's a good point.
I'm picking the man, Lee Matthews. Just especially because you put his stash on a graphic, you're picking up some votes, no matter what. So
how old
Lee
do you
Matthews,
reckon? How old do you reckon Lee Matthews is? Because I've just had a look. He coached
71.
Oh, he's 70. Well done. He coached 460 games and he played 332. So there's a bloke who's
Holy moly.
had some shit to do with footy.
Yeah, he you can't bring up a greatest of all time list without his name coming up. So
True.
Pretty happy to grab Lethal Lee Matthews. A lot of people surprised he never won a Brownlow. So I'll take him. Welcome to the club, Lee.
I agree. He should have probably been the third cab off the rank and a good pick there. This is a homer pick. There's plenty of justification in it. He's got the most votes out of any player not to win one. But I'm taking my favourite player, arguably of all time, in Scott Pendlebury, who has probably had the most consistent, we just talked about Dave Mundy. Pendles was like a little bit better, is fair to say. And I think he's had probably the most consistent career producing at like an elite level, arguably ever. It's tough to go back in history and name all the dudes that have had elite consistency. But yeah, Pendles is my man.
He's still doing it well. It's a good pick. That's a
Which
bloody
apparently
good pick.
played straight into your hands.
Oh yeah, and this is what this guy was my number one on the draft board.
Oh,
but so I've risked it, and I've got the biscuit because I'm going to pick another one of those guys. You could argue he's in the GOAT conversation. He's played 300 and a million games. He's kicked over 1,000 goals.
I was going to try and take him next. Well played.
I'm picking Lancelin Buddy Franklin. And I feel like if I lose this one, I'll be absolutely spewing. As good as Pendles is and as good as Senior is, I feel like grabbing Buddy with the fifth pick. Oh, mate, I'm excited. So welcome to the club, bud. 2 Hawks.
Can't go wrong if you're going to have 2 Hawks to have Lee Matthews and Lance Franklin. Yeah,
mate. If you pick a picture of him, maybe put him surrounded by a sea of people as he's celebrating his 1,000th goal. That would be nice.
I could do that. I've still got that photo saved on my phone that I one day want to put on a T-shirt, so that could be easily done.
Beautiful. Perfect.
Look. That's thrown a spanner a little bit.
Go with your heart.
Nah, not yet. I was hoping I could get him later, like I said, with my third pick. I was eyeballing him, but I'm not unhappy that I got Pendles. So I do wonder which route to go down now, because there's a couple of elder statesmen who probably won't get me the graphic vote, but if I put their names up in lights, that'd be great. And then there's a couple of modern day champs that I could throw into this spot. I think I'm going to, I'm going to draft a bloke who, again, similar to the Lethal bit, I didn't get to watch, but he was a captain in the AFL team of the century, played over 300 games as well. And, I think he passed away before our time even, really, but he is just celebrated in footy folklore, and his playing career was just as good apparently as his name. So I'm going to take Teddy Whitton.
Wow.
This late in the piece, who, like I said, going off a couple of other second-handed opinions, but every list I looked at, he just kept bobbing up. And a bloke who's the captain in the AFL team of the century has got to have done a couple of good things in his footy career.
Well, he was not even on my list. I sort of thought, he was in the stratosphere that I was occupying, not on my list. So, look, I feel a bit forward heavy. But I think I'm going to pick another forward, and I'm going to be a bastard. That's what I'm going to be. I'm going to pick the only man to win an All-Australian or be named All-Australian at all three ends of the ground, or all three spots.
Including the interchange.
Yep. Oh, all four then. 700 goals on the dot, I think.
On the dot.
Is that right?
Yep.
300 and something games. The greatest
53.
docker to ever lace them up. Great boundary rider now.
Yeah, he is.
And just one of the all-time noses in the AFL.
Absolute
In fact, he might have the number one nose in the AFL. I'm picking Matthew Pavlich from the Dockers, obviously. And South Australian royalty, West Australian royalty. He would have been up there for most goals, disposals outside of Victoria as well.
Yeah,
so
probably in both lists.
Tip of the hat to old Joshy Kennedy, but I'm going with the absolute superstar that is Matthew Pavlich. And boy, there's some rippers who I've left on the cutting room table floor somewhere.
Good pick, great value with your last pick. But hey, someone's got to finish second in these votes, so I guess it's my turn this week. I've got a couple of honourable mentions. You can throw your Kevin Bartlett's and your Jack Dyers and all those characters in. It wouldn't be
whatever.
a Brownlow conversation if we didn't give Scotty West a shout out as well. Who?
Thank God! I thought you were about to pick him, and I was going to be like, "No, can I have your last pick?" Anyway, sorry, all good. Love you, Scott West, but nah.
Yeah, nah. What kind of triggered me thinking about this was thinking about Joel Selward as well, because he's another one of the active players. But it doesn't exactly stack up. So from a footballing career, this bloke's got almost every accolade. It's a bit of a left field pick. I don't know if you'll see this one coming, but he may be in a similar class to Cyril as like the most talented footballers ever play. His resume might not read that, but with my last pick, I think I'm just going to have a bit of fun, and I'm going to take Andrew Mccloud.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, because he won dual Norm Smith medals, two-time premiership player, but never really got a lot of the voting shine from a Brownlow perspective. But,
Mark Rashudo stole him.
Yeah, true. But fuck me, he could play. And he was, before Scott Pendlebury, Mccloud was probably my favourite player of all time, which is ironic because you've taken Pavlich from the Dockers, the team I support, and he's probably third to both these other blokes. But yeah, I'm taking Andy Mccloud last.
Wow, good pick. He actually wasn't on my list, but I do love that. He was in the stratosphere. Well, that's good. Let's do a couple of other honourable mentions that you didn't get. And this is the bloke I think you should have picked with the last pick. Nicholas McRewalt.
Oh, yeah, okay.
He's just sitting there going,
that's a fair
boys,
one.
Pav got picked, but not me. You're fucking
not
joking.
Even on my list.
I would have picked Rewalt over Pav if I didn't think it would, it's Pav would annoy you. I thought you might pick him with your last pick. So
I probably would have.
Nick Rewalt, definitely up there. And the bloke who I wanted, he was actually 9th on my board. I'd written him down and then I was like, there's 9 there. But Peter Matera, I think, is the other bloke. Yeah, the other guy who was kind of on the list who probably didn't get that many accolades in his career at all, other than the normie, but he was just magic. A lot like Mccloud, almost Mccloud before Mccloud in a funny way.
Yeah, very similar actually. Good call. The only other bloke who I had written down was Polly Farmer, who got a bit of love a couple of weeks ago. But again, you want like a bit of longevity thing. His footballing career, not just narrowed to AFL or VFL AFL, was elite, but made his hay in a lot of state leagues. So yeah, good. I'll have to start brainstorming who I'm going to take with the number 1 pick next week then, I guess.
Wow. Yeah, the buddy third with my third is pretty good. So
yeah, that's
you never know. Twitter might save you once again. Twitter might save you again.
The people will decide. good luck to the Kusplorken boys this week. Hopefully the Hawley Zorko combination pays off. Don't hate it. Maybe you want to invest some of that hard-earned cash away from Dane Zorko and Aaron Hall, who burn coaches from time to time. But part of the season's all about having a bit of fun and rolling the dice. So I did not think it heading into round 21 as a combination would be bringing in Dane Zorko, Aaron Hall, and Zach Butters, but that's the world we live in.
Just literally 3 blokes who burnt the coaches the most this
Probably
year.
So, I'll trade in Braden Bruce as well, and we'll just tie a nice little bow on the whole fucking thing.
Yeah. So I'm done a real Timberwolves here. Could really work. Could go horribly wrong.
High risk, high reward. Let's figure it out. All right. Thanks again for sitting down, JLo. Another Ripper podcast. We'll do it again next week, mate. Bang, bang.
Bang, bang.